Ethan Smith, finally we got you on here, and finally we're starting the show up again. It's been a few months since I did one of these, but how are you doing, my man?
Good, good. It's been like we've been playing this for like over a year. You're
Yeah,
kind of ballparking it
well,
like
I
back and
tell
forth.
you, Will's going to be the one that's happiest that we're getting this done because he couldn't believe that we didn't do one of these when I was out there spending the week with you in Sonoma.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I know it's been a long time coming trying to get this put together. We've had to reschedule a couple times, but we're connected now, so let's just jump right into it. Thanks
All right.
again for taking the time out of your afternoon to join me.
Oh yeah,
Um,
no problem.
yeah, absolutely. So just to get started, I guess I've been asking a lot of people. This is kind of the icebreaker. Just tell me how you got into the world of motorsports and I guess NASCAR in particular.
All right, so it kind of all started through my mom because she worked for like a magazine, and every year she got like free tickets, like just through whatever sponsorship, and she always just gave them away. Just like growing up, like I wasn't really into it, but then one year when I was 4, she was kind of like, "Yeah, just take us and see what happens." So it would have been Sonoma 2006, I want to say. And then kind of ever since then, I've just been hooked for the most part. Pretty much all there is to that story. It's kind of been my thing ever since. So,
Oh, remind me again. You were born in '02,
uh,
right?
yeah, too.
So you would have been what, 4 years old at that time?
Mm-hmm.
And that's just crazy because I feel like almost everybody I ask that's about my age or a little bit younger or a little bit older, it's always 2006 or 2007, one of those 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
Which I know that's the year that Cars and Talladega Nights both came out. So I know there was a lot of positive energy around the sport in the mid 2000s. So I don't know if that's got something to do with it as well.
I mean, I don't know off the top of my head, but from what I know, I kind of just, she decided to take me. And then pretty much that was it. Kind
Sure.
of the rest of my life from here on out.
So what you're best known for is probably your photography. So I guess on that note, how did you get started in that field, and then how did that lead to the opportunities that you've gotten in the world of racing to do that?
So I took this photo class would have been freshman year of high school. That kind of like, introductory to photography or whatever. And it was like one of the things like I was kind of like always semi interested in. Like never really like held a camera and thought about it that much up until that class. And then I was kind of like, huh, I like racing. I like photography. What if I just bring it together? It was pretty much, and I got like, what was it? Can't remember what the camera was called, but it was like, just a point and shoot, like really small thing. I started using that would in 2017. I want to say it was like specifically at Sonoma because obviously my home race and everything. And from there, kind of just messed around for a couple years, just run around, see what races I can get to. And then, just emailing, DMing everyone, seeing if I can figure out whatever. And my first big break was from Rich DeLong, if you remember from ARCA West years ago. Yeah, because I sent him just like photos for free. Because, I was like just trying to get him just whatever I can to send him, I would. And he was like, "Oh, if you want to come down, like, Bakersfield for it's like the weekend after Roseville or weekend after in 2019. He was like, "Yeah, if you want to come down, I'll, like pay for your parking, not parking, pit pass." And I was like, "Hell yeah, I will." I have nothing to lose. So from there, like, people around the ARCA West garage kind of knew me from that point onwards. So like, oh, he takes photos. And I kind of just been building on that ever since for the most part. And last year, so obviously COVID happened 2020 and then partially 2021. But I kind of did ARCA West specifically for 2 years and came last year, like work just like ramped up like really quickly. Cause at the beginning of the year, I was just gonna do like, my usual ARCA West stuff. But then I got tapped to like one of my friends, Jason Wedehays. I don't know if you know him or not, but he used to be the track photographer at Madera Speedway, and he moved to Indiana for like a job, and he was like, "Hey, this job's open if you want it. Like, basically the door's open. You just have to tell the like track promoter." I'm like, "Okay, deal." So like, that was like easiest job interview. Sending him an interview. Ellie just called him like, "Hey, I'm the track photographer, I guess." And that was like it. So yeah, picked that up really easily. That's been a whole lot of fun because like, obviously Madera Speedway, it's just one of the local tracks. So you meet like all the little kids growing up and trying to make it. Like, I mean, some people like, Jesse Love, Haley Deegan, I made it through that track specifically. and obviously the Reefs have too in ARCA West. So if for the West Coast, like a very like known track, like oh, if you want to like compete at a higher level, you like need to start, not start, but you need to like race on Madera Speedway, just because that's kind of like the breeding ground for like going up from there. And then all my national stuff, like Cup, Xfinity trucks started happening this year too through my friend James Armis, who used to do Ars Motorsports photography, and he tapped me to do Portland, which we'll say that for a little later. But yeah, kind of tapped me for that, and then also got in touch with Dalen Barr, who you also probably know, just like Trackhouse and stuff. And pretty much for the rest of the year, I've been doing all three of those things. And yeah, pretty much where I'm at right now.
So I'll just be honest with you. I know very little about the world of photography, other than obviously having a tremendous amount of respect for the work that you guys do, because I know it's not easy. Just in all aspects of it, whether it's actually taking the photos itself or the editing, or your crazy schedules traveling back and forth. But I'd imagine, like, I can't think of all the skills it would take to master the art of photography for things that aren't moving at 180 miles an hour. So, what goes into, just thinking back to your, skill set and your career that you've kind of built for yourself over the last few years. I guess what advice would you have to anybody, that sees the work that you're doing and thinks, that might be something that I want to do one day?
It's gonna sound probably pretty cliche for like photographers like giving advice, but honestly, like just go out and practice. Like anytime you can shoot, you're gonna learn like something, even if you don't know it. Like if you told me like how I took my photos, I'll be honest, like half time, like, I don't know, man. I just took the photo. I'm like, that looks great. Anyways, I was like, over time, you're just like, oh, okay, you'll learn like what looks good on a camera and what doesn't. Like some situations, like tilting like a little bit to like a Dutch angle would look great, but other times, like why would you do that? Like I don't know. It's like a lot of like artistic vision, I guess that's the best way to put it. Like you can always learn like how the camera works and everything like technical, but it really comes down like the artistic eye that really like separates everyone like photography wise from everyone else. So yeah, the probably my best advice, just go out and shoot, see what you like, and go from there.
Yeah, that reminds me. I think Roger Federer was quoted one time as giving that kind of answer. Like, somebody asked him, like, I don't know if he just had an amazing serve or volley or whatever, something during a tennis match, and the reporter just asked him, "How did you do it?" And he just looks at the reporter and says, "I don't know. I just, it comes naturally to me." And he's one of the best in the world, and that's just kind of how it works for him. So I guess that that can be applied to other skill sets and things like that as well. I want to get into the Portland Sonoma weekends that we shared over this past summer here. I know you mentioned, what was his name, James? Again, he
Yeah.
tapped you to do Portland. Was actually, before we get into that, was there a West Series race this year that you didn't attend as a photographer?
Last year, no.
So
I
you
went
you
to
were at
all
the
the
entire
races. Yeah.
schedule there. Wow, that's got to be quite a schedule, I imagine. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So I guess just take me through Portland to start. I know you were working for a couple of Xfinity teams there. I think trying to think back, because I know AJ won. I think Jordan Anderson's was Myatt Snyder was driving that car at the
Hmm.
time, right? So he took second. You were shooting for them, right?
Yeah, it would have been our motorsports, Brett Moffitt, Anthony Alfredo, Jeb Burton, and then Myatt Snyder for that weekend, on top of, all my ARCA West. And which I was also covering for my friend Diego Alvarado, because he's like the other ARC West photographer. So say it was a busy weekend is probably a bit of an understatement. I was kind of just running around nonstop for 2 days, but it was, yeah, it was fun. I wish it didn't rain somewhat, but whatever.
Well, we can get into that in a second as well. But before we do, just like you mentioned, you're shooting for, I guess, 4 Xfinity cars, and then obviously all your regular West Series teams that you shoot for. How do you keep track of managing all that as the schedule's going on throughout the weekend?
Honestly, for me, it's like I'm really good at like just remembering like specific things in my head. Like if a client needs like something, like most times like I don't even like write it down. It's like, oh, just remember, this car number needs XYZ, and then this car number needs ZYX or whatever. It's like I don't really like. It's like probably a bad thing to say, but I'm really bad at organizing like back end of things. But I feel like I make like everything work. Like I got everything done I needed to. Yeah, just just knock it off one by one, get it done like as soon as possible. You don't like keep it in the back of your mind while you're shooting.
Yeah, well, and then I remember because I was there, obviously, your camera had a bit of trouble with some water damage. Obviously, it was raining all weekend.
Hmm.
So take me back through that whole saga. How did that end up resolving itself in time to just do a 1 week turnaround to get to Sonoma?
All right, so obviously, Xfinity, like the whole race, or it didn't rain the whole race. It rained for, like the beginning and that stopped. Then the ARCA race, because a lot of people don't watch ARCA, sadly. Um, Basically that race was just pouring start to finish. And it was towards probably about like 2/3, if I remember correctly, like from the race I was supposed to be over. Like, I was just doing my thing. I was on the beginning of the batch check specifically. And then I remember because you were the one that was texting me everything on Twitter. You're like, oh, like lap
Yeah.
updates. And you're like, I remember what
I was in the
exactly you
media
said.
trailer watching the Flow Racing feed or the NBC feed, whatever you call it. But
Hmm.
I remember you were asking me for the lap updates all weekend.
And then, like you're like, just like, the usual ones like, I don't remember exactly you said it, like, oh, it's two to go. And I was like, huh?
Yeah,
Excuse me?
I remember counting down. It was like 25. I sent you 25 to go and then 20 to go. And then I said 2 to go, no typo. Because I
I was like, huh?
make sure it
What?
wasn't a mistake here.
I'm
But
like I'm like a whole mile away from where I need to be at the finish right now.
yeah,
I was like, I got places to be. So like I quickly, like the second you sent that, I was like, I booked it. Like I usually have AirPods on whenever I'm shooting. I didn't even have time to put them in the case. I just threw them in my pocket. I was like, I gotta go. And that was probably the hardest hardest I've ever ran like with photo gear on me. I was like, I was out of breath. And then like at that point, like everything was working fine, thankfully, like nothing happened yet. But once I got to like victory lane, which I already missed by the way, because it got called early. There's no way I'm gonna run a mile in like 3 minutes. Like, yeah, that's not possible. But I get over there, victory lane. I'm like, because Jake won, I was shooting for him. I was like, all right, just get what I can. I'm sure, Luis. I was like, I sure just pick up whatever I can from him. I was like, all right, time to check my camera. And it just didn't turn on. And I was like, ah, cool, sweet. And I was like, okay, at least I still have my R5. And I was like, oh, this one also doesn't turn on. So it's actually both of them failed like at the very end, which I mean, at least it happened at the very end. If it happened like, during the race, I'm screwed.
yeah.
Like there's no like, yeah, that's a whole nother mess. But I was like, okay, at least I have a friend I can lean on and everything. I was like, because at the time was it I had a Canon R5 and then my also 60 Mark II. And I was like, okay, whatever. I'll just have to dry them out because they're pretty like weather resistant, like advertises all that. And I was like, okay, whatever. Dry them out or try to do my best after everything. My R5 did eventually come back to life as like the night of. So like, okay, cool. But my 60 Mark II just never turned back on. So I was like, all right, cool. I have like by the time we get home, I have 4 days to figure out what in the world am I going to do for Sonoma the next weekend. And I remember the whole car ride. Like, we drove from Portland down just full 10 hours. And back my mind is kind of like, what am I supposed to do here? Like, do I just go out and buy a new camera right now? Or do I like hope that something works or something in between? And I was like, I don't know. And I kept trying, like, I'm pretty sure you saw me at one point. I had like my camera and like a bag of rice just sitting on the kitchen. And just hoping it would turn on.
And like in 1,000 different pieces, right? Trying to dry
I
it
was
out.
like, I literally open up all the ports. I'm like, please just get as much water out as you can. It's like I really don't have like a quick turnaround. And so I was like, all right. I forget what day was it where I was like, I kind of have to give up and just like get something like ASAP. So I eventually bought my second Canon R5, which I still have, and then kind of started talking with insurance, which I'll get to in a second. It's also quite funny. But yeah, that happened. I got my camera would have been like that Thursday, so the day before Portland, because I had to ship like really quickly. So I was like, big stressing because it came a day late. Then I'm like, I'm already kind of screwed for a day. Because as a photographer, like sports photographer specifically, it's like once you have like two bodies, it's like insanely hard to go back to one because like you just like think differently because you don't have to like necessarily. It's not that you don't plan like on what you're using, but it's like okay, I can leave like this lens on this body, but then this lens on this body. So I'm like, okay, if I have one body, I have to figure out what time I need what lens and swap back and forth, and it's a whole mess. And pretty much, yeah, those are pretty stressful week. Just like back end of things, but yeah, for the Portland portion of that trip, I a lot of memories. I'd say overall good, but also definitely very stressful. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, well, I guess from a viewer's perspective, the rain always makes things more interesting because certain drivers are going to excel in that, and others maybe not so much. And so maybe you get a different looking top five or top 10 than you usually get, particularly if it happens in ARCA, because it's extremely rare to get a wet race in the West Series or anything like
Oh
that.
yeah, I don't even remember like before this. When was the last time
Yeah,
like we had one? I have no idea.
yeah, I don't know either. Uh, I don't know. Charlie Crawl probably knows.
Yeah, I'll just hit him up right now.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, obviously, and I can tell you just from working, that weekend as well. Hopefully, keep your fingers crossed. I'll be able to make it back out this upcoming summer, but certainly
Please,
hope that we
I'm
don't have any.
manifesting.
Yeah, certainly hope that we don't have uh as much rain as we had at least this past June, because that was certainly tricky to try to work around and not too pleasant to be in. So
Yeah, and also that schedule was like really weird for that weekend.
yeah, well, and
Yeah.
it was strange to me because I hate thinking of ARCA West as kind of like the undercard series because it's probably my favorite stock car series to watch as well, even though I'm
Hmm.
living on the East Coast. But uh, to have that race kind of be like the final event of the weekend when the majority of attention and fans are there for the Xfinity race was a bit weird to me as well. Usually you have the preliminary races before the main event, so yeah, the schedule was certainly seemed a bit off for sure.
Yeah, and then also remember the yeah, what about Friday? It was like a 10 a.m. practice and then 5 p.m. qualifying for Xfinity. That was like it. Like there's the giant break in the middle. I was like, okay, cool. I guess you could have like thrown like X or ARCA practice in there, but whatever.
Yeah, I forget what we did during that. But I can't remember because I think the trucks were at Gateway.
Hmm.
I can't remember if the race was on Friday or Saturday even.
I don't remember.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I guess we can move forward now to the following weekend, Sonoma, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think you ended up doing a lot more work that weekend than you were initially planning on
Yes.
into it. You had a series driver message you, hit you up on Instagram or Twitter or one of those, and ask you to do some video, and then obviously got the chance to be shooting for the team that ended up winning the Cup Series race as well. So, what all happened that led up to that for the Sonoma weekend?
All right. So Friday was it? Only truck practice and ARCA practice. I kind of need to just do what I do because I was only doing ARCA West specifically. So Friday was like normal, just do what I do. And then Saturday morning rolls around. We're heading to the track, and like while I'm heading to like the photo room, I just get a DM from Carson Hovar. It's like, hey, can you shoot video for me? Like whatever, blah blah blah. I was like, I mean, sure. I'm a, I mean, I made sure it's like, yeah, I'm definitely not a video guy at all. But yeah, sure, whatever. We'll meet up and figure it out from there. And so like we just talked like quickly before the day like started. And yeah, pretty much because you remember that was also the weekend after like his gateway crash too. So like,
Right.
a big
Yep.
media buzz and everything, which that was already weird. But that day was hard because I just juggle, what was it? I remember specifically because it was truck qualifying and then ARCA race. Just money wise, I had to prioritize the ARCA race. So like I told Carson, like, hey, I just by the way, I'll have to leave like qualifying early for my ARCA stuff. Just that's how it is. And I was like, yeah, sure. And then I don't know if you remember specifically, but he was like going for pole, which I feel like if I was trying to shoot for him, like it's like I feel really bad for missing that because that's like a whole story in itself that he like got pulled and then wrecked the truck and everything. But I was like, whatever, kind of just, it is what it is, move on. And ARCA race happens that Saturday right after. That was going fine up until it got called early for TV windows. Very cool. Yeah,
I want to get your thoughts on that, later on in the show, because I know that Portland and Sonoma weren't the only ones that had, that issue of getting called early, but
uh,
happened on back-to-back weekends when we were out there.
yeah, I was like, where was I? I think I was at turn 4. Like I was doing it backwards, like a backwards lap. So it was like Diego and I were like basically in the same spot when he was like, "Oh, by the way, if it's either next caution or like the finish, whatever comes first." If I off the top of my head, I might be wrong, but I was like, "All right, cool, thank you again." 2 weekends in a row. So I quickly just ran over victory lane. Jake won again, which I wasn't. That's more Diego's client, but I was just helping out and everything. And then from there, I was like, all right, just focus on Carson. Like, because what was it? I think he was only in the truck for like 8, 10 laps, give or take. And so I was kind of like, all right, just, do whatever, get everything I can in this like short amount of time. For what I got, I think I did pretty well for like first time doing videography. I was like, yeah, definitely like there's things looking back when I was looking through everything. I was like, I just don't have the mic for this. Like this sounds like doo doo. But it worked out. I'm proud of what I did that day. I haven't learned anything from it since. I just haven't applied it because I'm not a videographer really, for the most part. And let's see, that's pretty much the rest of that day, just whatever. And come Sunday, I was more or less just me. The original plan was me, like, because I was shooting from the podium finish, like for that weekend specifically. So I was like, oh, okay, kind of like not necessarily do whatever, but more like, yeah, just make cool stuff, see what I get. And then Dalen, which he does track house and everything, he was like, hey, by the way, if like if one of like a track house cars win, then we're gonna quickly like, bring you in. I was like, okay, sweet, deal. And it's like, I was doing my thing, running laps around the track. And I was like, huh, Suarez is in the first and he's like he's still going. I was like, all right, cool. And yeah, pretty much we coordinated everything like, super quickly on Twitter. Like literally within like a lap, I was like, all right, I'm here, you're there. Matt, so the friends can be all the way on the other side. We're just gonna figure out what's happening from there. And I would say it worked out really well just because like the way the burnout happened and everything. I feel like I was positioned perfectly for my photos. Like, I don't know, I just really like them. Got everything I needed. But yeah, it's like definitely the whole weekend was kind of like a lot of things happened I just wasn't planning on happening until like I was already doing it. I was like, oh, okay, cool. So yeah, pretty much sums up that whole experience. Just a lot of things coming on my face quickly and just having to do them.
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny how often these things can be connected in this sport because, like you mentioned, Hocevar had just been injured and only did whatever it was 8 or 10 laps, and then Suarez was the one that
Oh yeah, yeah.
lead driver. So it's kind of funny. You end up shooting for that team on Saturday, and then he wins the race on Sunday, and you get to take some of the victory photos as well.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I know, forgive me if I haven't passed this on yet. I'm like 7 months late here, but I know, obviously I'm working with Brock Beard in the media center, and when me and Luis were all over there talking to him, like Brock told me afterwards, when we were debriefing the weekend, that he could just tell that you were ecstatic with how everything had gone. So I know that meant a lot to you to have that opportunity, and like I said, I'm a huge fan of your work. Obviously, I think your photos came out spectacularly as
Thank you,
well.
thank
So
you.
certainly job well done on that, and great weekend for everybody over there as well. So was there anything else after those 2 weeks that stood out to you throughout the rest of the 22 season looking back?
uh, I would say probably when I did the Roval weekend for Dalen and Matt. That was a very fun weekend. Cause like my first like I always say big boy trip, weirdly enough, but it's like yeah, like first time like traveling like long distance by myself and like figuring out everything by myself. And and also my first, how do I put it? My first like scheduled national, no, second national, I guess, scheduled race for me. Because it definitely wasn't on my like plans at the beginning of the year to like go, all the way to Charlotte and like do stuff. But yeah, I mean, it was already really cool because, then who was it? Yeah, Daniel Kvyat, Sam Hunt, they announced that. I was like, you know, shooting for a former F1 driver was on my bucket list this year, but damn, that's cool. It's cool to get to say that I've done before. And I mean, the race themselves, like they kind of were same old, whatever. Like the trip itself, though, was a lot of fun. Like, I met a lot of people like I know through Twitter, like for the first time. So like, just making friends, hanging, chatting, man, pretty much that whole deal. It's like I definitely wish I could go back this year, but the way schedule it just works out, like I just can't. So I guess we'll see what else I can do from here on out.
Well, that's a nice segue into my next question for you. Looking ahead to this upcoming season, 2023, um, are you planning on more of the same, like hitting up all the West Series races, or would you want to continue to expand out to do more national series stuff and maybe come back out to the East Coast a couple of times?
I know right now my plan is basically the same as last year. So it'd be ARCA West, Madera Speedway, and then whatever national series go like thrown my way at the moment. So pretty much, yeah, same exact thing. Hopefully I can like do more because I don't remember how many weekends I was out, but I was like the few weekends like had off, I was like, I'm happy to have them off, but damn, do I want to be at a racetrack? So I'm like, yeah, I was like, I'm happy where I'm at right now. Like, finally have like not like necessarily a stable like income necessarily because Arca West, Madera, I kind of have no idea who's going, like where, who I'm shooting for really as at the moment. But I would say at the like right now, kind of chilling, same old, same old. Yeah, for the most part. Pretty much all I got for that.
So, what is the ultimate dream job, if you will, or your goal to where do you want to be in, looking ahead in a few years?
I would say definitely like photography for like not even just NASCAR, like just like any motorsports team in general, just because like I always say, NASCAR is my main focus, but I also enjoy other like F1, Indy, all that stuff. I'm like anyone that like needs photos, I'm more than happy to like help out. And like, hey, if I get tapped, like just all of a sudden go to Europe for like a full-time photo job, I'm down. I'm game. Like, yeah, just pay me. I'm there. But yeah, I guess yeah, main goal is just more like just finding a stable job. Like even if it is freelancing, I used to have having consistent clients. So I can just make sure. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have.
Forgive me, I don't obviously know the geography of California as well as you do, but is Laguna Seca the closest IndyCar track to you now that Sonoma's on the calendar?
Yes, yeah.
Have you
It's
thought
like what,
about taking the trip out there
3 hours?
to maybe?
I did in 2018, like just me just going shooting, like as a fan. Ever since, like I don't know, really never, I haven't really had like a reason to go necessarily. Like I was debating on it, like just as a fan to go last year, but it just didn't like go. I was like, I like money. I like saving my money. So
Yeah.
yeah, but it's like I definitely want to start like going out to like other series. I was like, hey, my name's Ethan. I do this, blah blah blah. If you need me, just like call me, text me, whatever. See what happens. Yeah, cause it would have been second Portland weekend, cause it was with the indie ladder and everything. Jagger Jones, who first of all, wow, that's a whole little story, but he was like, yeah, I would have like reached out. We already have our team photographer and everything. I was like, I mean, yeah, fair. Like I can't hate you for that. Just waste the money at that point if you already have someone. But I was like, huh, there was a chance. Like that means there's like there's definitely people like looking, like see what other people are doing.
Yeah. Well, and of course he did a season of, I guess it was K&N West still at the time. So I'm sure there was a connection there already.
Hmm.
I was just remember that actually because I guess they're only doing Portland's with the Xfinity Series next year, right? There's only one Portland date.
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess that makes sense from a logistical schedule standpoint, but selfishly, since that's where the Grid Network is based with Joe, Joe
Oh,
could
yeah.
do a second West Series race if they were still going there twice a year.
Hey, well, that was a Formula E race there, so.
Well, that's true. That's not a bad trade-off there. Although from my perspective, New York is only about a 2.5 hour drive depending on traffic, whereas, I'd have to take another flight out to
Yeah, a whole like
Portland,
5+ hour
obviously.
flight.
Yeah. Yeah, might as well be in. Well, I shouldn't say that because you don't have to go through like customs or anything, but you know, the distance is almost like going to another part of the world, another country.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
or I'd have to travel. Although I never made it back to New York. I wanted to go back. Actually, I was thinking maybe in 2020, and that race obviously didn't happen.
Hmm.
But it was an interesting experience going in 2017 to that race, and obviously the sport's changed so much since then, and then this year as well, they got the new generation of cars. I still think they got some kinks to iron out with those, and
I feel
the
like they
race
just
format.
they look like Legos.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody just looks like a weird Lego car.
Well,
I'm like, I mean,
all three
sure.
generations have looked a little bit strange, but I guess the idea that you've got a formula car that's powered entirely by electricity is a strange concept in and of itself. So I guess that's just par for the course. But
Hmm.
I got to watch kind of getting a little bit off topic here, but I watched the race in Mexico last weekend. Um, but yeah, the TV deal that they have with CBS is not great because it's last year the races were only on CBS Sports Network, which is like a tier below the cable,
So it'd be, yeah,
like
cable and
ESPN
everything.
and FS1. Yeah, so um, it drives me crazy. I don't know if there's like a contract issue that stands in the way, but I don't know why they can't just shove that on Paramount Plus because I have Paramount Plus. I have most of the streaming services, so I'd be able to watch it there.
Hmm.
I don't know if they're going to do it all year, but fortunately they streamed it on their app and their website for free this time, so I got to watch the race there. But yeah, I'm sure Joe's already making plans to make a trip out there for that, so we'll see where that goes here.
Yeah, it's like for me, like I feel like the cons, like it's really weird because like Formula E, it's like, oh, they're going all these like cool places. Like I don't be honest, I don't follow Formula E like that. Like obviously like New York, like
Yeah,
they're like what, like
like New
across the
York,
river or something like
London,
that.
Berlin, Rome.
Yeah. And
You
then there's a random track in Portland, Oregon that I would argue is not like the best city to be in, to say the least. It's like, I don't know.
know,
I think it's funny, but I'm like, if it turns out well, I mean, good for them. Like, I hope it works out. But it's like, I don't know, it's just like the juxtaposition. I don't know if that's a term to use. I don't know, it's
well,
just kind of funny to me.
I'm curious to see because most of the tracks are on street circuits, temporary. And the whole idea, I think, was kind of we want to bring the race to these people in these major cities rather than making them come out to these racetracks. So up until now, I think Mexico's kind of been the only one that's like in a permanent road course facility. So it's certainly going to be
Mm,
interesting to see how it works out. I am going to miss having New York on the schedule, but I guess a brand new series like that, it's not too surprising that some dates are constantly changing, and I don't know, it's disappointing, but I guess that's part of life.
yeah, just it is what it is.
Yeah, I'm more open to the idea of gimmicks like attack mode and fan boost because you know how I feel about those gimmicks in NASCAR, right?
Yeah.
Formula,
Painfully obvious.
yeah, Formula E being a brand new series, like they want to try some new things out. There's no history or precedent uh telling them to do otherwise. So I'm not a fan of it in principle, but I can at least be a little bit more forgiving of it in a series like that.
Hmm.
Um, so I always just found it at the start a little bit hypocritical because they have obviously the message of like sustainability and being more environmentally friendly and everything, except they're traveling all over the world and they had to bring twice as many
Oh
race
yeah.
cars along.
Yeah, they had two separate cars for like the
Yeah, the
race.
batteries didn't last long enough, so you had to jump at the pit stops were you pull into the paddock, you jump out of your first car, you hop into your second car, and so you're taking twice as many resources with you
Yeah.
around. So it's like, well, okay, you're saving on your carbon footprint on gasoline, obviously, but now how many resources are you using to double the amount of cars that you've got to take to every race? So but
Mhm.
they don't have that problem anymore, obviously, now that the batteries last long enough in the newer generations of cars. But yeah, we'll see. I guess this is a nice segue as well, because I know you're a photographer. You're not really as much a journalist or a pundit or anything, but I do want to get your thoughts on a couple of things happening in the world of racing, and particularly in
All right,
ARCA.
I'm ready. I'm ready. Just hit me.
Um, yeah. So I guess, thinking back just to a few years ago when it was still under the NASCAR K&N Pro Series banner, East and West both had, I think usually anywhere from 12 to 15 race schedules. Like, the car counts were starting to dip a little bit, but they were still pretty healthy at most tracks. And then you flash forward to, the present day, and we talk all the time about how, there's, only 14 cars showing up to a race here or 12 cars showing up to a race there. And I can tell you here on the East Series, there's only a few standalone races. Half the schedule is now combo races with big ARCA. So, if you had to rate the health of ARCA in general, and I guess particularly the West Series right now, what do you like about the current state of things, and what do you think needs to be prioritized in terms of where we go from here and trying to improve things?
I'd probably say, like, obviously, I'm slightly more biased to ARCA West, just obviously, but I
Sure.
definitely think I'm focused more on ARCA West, but I'll talk about ARCA in general. I feel like the schedules overall for all three are pretty good. Like, ARCA West is definitely like great, like with hands down, like the best we've had in so long. Like what we're gonna like, obviously, Sonoma, that's a big race. We have a combo race with Phoenix, and then I'll see Phoenix finale. But we're also going to like Shasta, which is like just a weird track, you know, I don't know how many hours north. It's like kind of middle nowhere. And Madeira, which, my Madeira Speedway thing. So I'm like, all right, home territory. But it's like, I really just like the diversity that we have here. Cause, big oval, big road course versus like these tiny borings like Vegas or Shasta. I really, really do like this. What's the term? A lot of diversity. The same goes with like ARCA Maine. I feel like they have a really good mix too. Because I mean, even with they also have the two dirt races that happen along with. I think is it only one road course this year or two?
I don't even know.
Because I know it's Mid Ohio. I just can't remember if they're going to Watkins Glen or not off the top of my head.
I think they are, because that's like the weird scheduling where like Watkins Glen's on a Friday and one of the
Oh yeah, was it
Illinois.
Springfield or the
Yeah,
other?
that's
Okay.
right. Is on the Sunday. So there's that quick turnaround, which isn't great for the teams. But I think if they want to keep Springfield on the calendar, it's like the only date that they have, and then Watkins Glen's that weekend anyway. So it's
Mm,
you know kind of a catch-22 situation, I guess.
and then I would say Arca East definitely. I mean, we've talked about this before. It's definitely like the one that's hurting the most at the moment. Because yeah, like what? I think is it 7 races this year? 8? I think 8.
Yeah, it's eight. It's eight this year with four combos.
Yeah, it's
I think
like
it's basically last year's schedule, except they added a combo
it
race.
was
I think I
was
forget
it.
what's taking New Smyrna's place, because New Smyrna's not on the schedule anymore, which is
Yeah.
a big loss. But I can just speak to, and we've had this conversation before as well. But my area, the Mid Atlantic, up to New England's just kind of gotten destroyed over the last.
Yeah, there is not a lot going on up there at this
Yeah.
point.
Well, I told you, I think after Mid Ohio, the closest track to me might be Toronto for IndyCar, which is
Yeah.
depressing to think about when you think of Watkins Glen and Pocono, and you know, uh, the fact that they were supposed to go back to Richmond, and the street race we used to have in Baltimore. Obviously, Nazareth is near and dear to my
Yeah,
heart, but that's
that's long
even
gone,
further long
unfortunately.
gone than North Wilkesboro ever was. So it's unfortunate, and thinking back to East as well. You had that race in New Jersey for a few years, and Big Arc actually went there as well for several years before that. So um, if we can get the car counts to be boosted a little bit, I'd love to see them go back there one day.
Mhm.
Um, but I've always said that, even as somebody who lives on the East Coast, obviously, I would much rather have a 24 race ARCA schedule with no ARCA East than a 20 race ARCA schedule and an 8 race ARCA East schedule, but 4 of those ARCA East races are just combo races with big ARCA anyway.
Mhm.
To use Dover as the example, since that's my home track, it's kind of depressing to think about, a 15 car field, only 10 of which, are really running at competitive speed above what a starting park would run. Um, I think that race would do better if it were a big ARCA race. And the ARCA East races should more be like short tracks and regional circuits that don't have the infrastructure to bring in. I mean, you got the Cup Series racing at Dover. That's
Hmm.
the infrastructure that you have there. I'd rather see those East standalone dates go to tracks like that. Um, but then on the flip side, like you said, West has a 12 race schedule coming up this year, and only one of them is a combo race. So I think, like you said, the schedule is much healthier over there, and you've got a lot more independent teams that focus primarily on the West Series. Maybe they come out to a couple ARCA races, once or twice a year, aside from the combo race, obviously.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm with you. I sometimes selfishly I wish I lived, out on the other side of the country because I could hit up more of these West races. But here on the East Coast, there's not too much within a reasonable distance of me, so that can be pretty frustrating.
Yeah, it's like I enjoy living on the West Coast and everything because ARCA West, like really, I would argue it honestly is probably the best stock car series at the moment. Maybe Xfinity, but for a different reason. But yeah, it's like ARCA West definitely is the healthiest, and I really do like that it's standalone. Like it can really be like its own series and be like just fine. Versus like if ARC East was standalone, who knows? It would have been gone already, maybe. Could just been merged or whatever. Yeah. With that said, though, obviously this year, with everything going on, we aren't really sure like car count wise where everyone's at. Like East is starting to come together as we saw like just today, Sean Higurami and Isabella Robusto. Yeah. Versus like right now, I want to say right now we only have 4 full-time confirmed. I'm not gonna say them just because I don't know if they want to like have their own press release or whatever, but yeah. It's like right now we're like, so how many cars are we actually gonna have this year? Because at the end of last year, like as you saw, we had a really strong car counts. Like obviously, Phoenix is kind of like an oddball because a lot of the ARCA teams go there, so I'm not gonna count that. But like Vegas and Roseville is like what, like 24 and 27 cars, like these two like bull ring tracks. I was like, this is setting up like really well for this year. But like right now, I'm like, I'm not necessarily like, I'm still hopeful, but I'm starting like, all right, getting slightly worried. I don't know, it's just because like the season still doesn't start for a whole another 2 months versus ARCA East, which actually I have no idea when that starts. Is it like late
I don't even
February?
know either. I've been enjoying the off season, man. I need to
Yeah, I'm
take a look
enjoying
back
it
into
too.
it. I know Daytona's coming up in a few weeks, and the Clash, obviously. That's all I know. So I
Hmm.
need to, take a good look at the schedules for the upcoming year. But yeah, no new Smyrna, like I said, which is pretty disappointing because I felt like that was the one East standalone race that actually historically, I know last year wasn't so great, and maybe that's why they cut it. But
Hmm.
BMR always used to make the trip out to New Smyrna, and you had some West teams go out there as well. So
Man, remember
pretty good.
sorry, kind of slightly off topic. Battle at the Beach. Missed that.
Yeah, that was I got to say, I was a little before my time in terms of following like K&N and the
Hmm.
modified. I do remember obviously the clip of Steve Park and the late great Mike Stefanik and
Yep,
finish of that
classic.
modified race. That was pretty cool. Um, but yeah, I regret not being into those series at that time because I'm sure that's something that I would have loved watching in real time there. So would be nice, I suppose, if they maybe consider bringing that back as well.
Yeah, because like I was also gonna say another thing I I miss from the old like NASCAR K&N days is like a East West race or combo race. Like you remember the ones like from Iowa.
Yeah,
Those are always fun. It's like with the ARCA ones, like yeah, sure, it's cool and everything, but I don't know. It's like it's not the same. Versus if West versus East, like you can kind of market that to like its
yeah,
own thing.
yeah. Well, like Rev Racing getting a chance to race, BMR and Sunrise Ford, like that only happens really once or twice a year, right? So
Hmm.
to market those combo races could provide some positive momentum and advertising to bring people in, and you'd have some storylines there which you could promote. The one thing I didn't like though, and what I like about what they're doing now, with the combo races, is that I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Gregson actually ran into Noah Gregson when he was running both schedules. Like there was a year
Oh yeah.
2016, 2017 where he only got points in one of the series when he ran the combo race, like whichever was his primary
Hmm.
series. So I think the year after, um, again, I think Gilliland was doing both, and the BMR cars ran enough East races that I think they qualified as East drivers, so they got combination points on their licenses. But I think it just makes more sense to give points in all the series to everybody if you're going to do a combo race, so that way there's no confusion there or somebody feeling like that they're lower in points than they should have been at the end of the year because they missed out. So it
Yeah,
wasn't perfect, but I think it was it was always an interesting event to watch for sure.
it's like I could the Noah thing. I want to say he declared East points that situation because I think it's like just closer to the championship. Might be wrong on that, so just note. But yeah,
I,
anyways.
yeah, I know Gilliland came close to winning both that one year. I think he hit the wall at Dover, and Harrison Burton got him at the last race in 17, and then Derek Kraus started. It looked like he was going to go for the double in 19, but eventually fell far enough back in East that I think BMR said, "All right, let's just focus on securing the West title." But
Hmm.
yeah, I will say I did the one thing I prefer about how they used to do it is sometimes because like the Rev Racing car would be number 6, and Sunrise Ford had their number 6 obviously, so you get these different numbers being run, whereas nowadays they just you see like 4W or 4E depending on West or East. So
Yeah.
sometimes look weird. Like you have 2 number 4 cars out there or 2 number 11 cars out there. So that can get kind of confusing sometimes.
Hmm.
Well, I guess before we wrap up, do you have anything else that you want to plug for the upcoming year, or any other strong opinions you got on the current state of ARCA West or anything like that?
I mean, not really like anything like too important. It's more just like, yeah, just I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing. Want to check me out? Like, just find my socials. I'm pretty sure all of them like at Ethan H Smith underscore for the most part. And other than that, I guess just I'm excited for the season, not even just for my own work, like what I'm doing, but even like the NASCAR Cup Series. It's like obviously a lot of things been happening there, with, like Legacy, that whole deal, and then now that Travis Pastrana is running for 2311, I feel like sorry, this is slightly off topic, but
Oh, please go ahead.
it's like I really enjoy like we're in this weird age where a lot of like foreign drivers are like now like either coming back or like are coming over here because we saw Kimmy last year and Travis Pastrana, and then like rumors like Elio Castroneves and Daniel Ricciardo flying around, and it's like I don't know the last time we've had that, like what, like 2007, like the whole like open wheel invasion,
Right.
like along those lines. Like
Uh,
I really just find that really cool. Like I wish other motorsports did that. Like obviously F1 kind of exclusive, so I'm not even gonna bring that up. Like IndyCar, you kind of see that, like non-IndyCar drivers going to IndyCar. Like obviously the whole Kyle Larson thing got announced. Really cool. Wish it was this year though. Yeah, it's like I don't know, I feel like the momentum would kind of die down. Like an announcement for a whole year and 4 months. Right. I don't know.
500 days, right?
Oh yeah. Is that why? Is that why they did it? I don't
Well,
know.
I don't know. I don't know if that's just a coincidence or obviously I've been watching Brock's series that he's doing obviously, but
Mm,
yeah. I think once we get closer to the date, the momentum and anticipation will come back there. Um but I don't know. We'll see. I'm with you. I always enjoy seeing that crossover and different drivers trying different disciplines. I know Lewis Hamilton was in Miami when Jeff Gordon was running his last race, and he did the seat swap with Tony Stewart
hmm.
a few years before that. And he's always said, NASCAR's kind of on his bucket list. He wants to do a race one day. So, I don't know how much longer he's going to have in F1, but I'd imagine he's got more time beyond his F1 days to continue to race in something. So I'm sure NASCAR would love to have that publicity and have him come over, whether it's a one off or who knows what the future might hold for him. But I'm with you. I enjoy seeing that as well, and I wish we still had 43 car fields because
Oh
I
yeah.
got a feeling there's with how many storylines we have with the open cars, which is great because we haven't really had that in the last few years. But I've got a feeling some big name's gonna miss the show, which I suppose is good in some ways. But I can think back to again, going back to 2007 when you had 61 cars show up for 43 spots. Um, the days of that are obviously long gone.
Yeah, it's like was it the original Indy 400 that had like what, like 80 something cars for 43 spots or something stupid like that? Can't remember.
Yeah, the Brickyard 400, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, in 94. Yeah, I think it was 86 for 43. So I think literally half the field got sent home,
It's
which
like I know we'll never reach those numbers like ever again.
yeah,
But I'm like, I really do miss the days like there were definitely go or go homers like what we have in Xfinity and trucks. Because it makes like not that qualifying isn't exciting as is, but it's like you're more like enticed to watch like, all right, who's missing the field? And then obviously charter system, blah blah blah, whatever. Not necessarily the main talking point I'm getting at, but it's like, I don't know. I personally don't really like qualifying if there aren't really stakes to it, you know?
for sure. Yeah,
It's like, yeah, we saw Fernando Alonso, that whole thing at Indy
right.
a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
Like
but
that
like,
was probably bigger than the race itself, I'll be honest, like
yeah.
news wise.
Oh yeah, well in Europe for sure, no doubt. And that's what I always say about Daytona. It's like if you're a Chase Elliott fan, is there any reason to watch the duels?
It's
Your
like
guy
they're already
owns it.
locked in.
Yeah, his team owns a charter. He's locked in already. Whereas if you're a Scott Dixon fan, it doesn't matter if he's won the last however many polls in however many years, and is always a threat to qualify well and win the race, and 6-time IndyCar champion. Indy plays no favorites, so it's no guarantee that he's going to make the field. So you're going to watch to make sure. Okay, well he's probably going to be fine, but let's make sure here. So there's always that tension, and the stakes and the drama is always a possibility.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. I kind of wish we could just I really do like the old like top 35 like honors points because it kind of
Yeah,
rewarded like, as
I'll
like
take
I
that.
said,
I'll take that over the charter system for sure.
yeah. It's like how do I put it? It still like locks you in, don't get me wrong. Like, yeah, that's the whole point of it. But it also rewards like, your speed also versus
Yeah.
charter. It's like, oh, if you have the money, then cool. You're locked in. Great. Anyways.
Well, and
So
if
yeah.
and if you don't have the money and you're running as an open card, there's no opportunity to earn money
Yeah,
because
like, well,
99.9% of the money goes to the charter teams.
like I remember Chris Busher, was it 2020? Not Chris Busher, sorry, Ryan Priest, 2020 with
Yeah,
JTD. They ran open that one year for
yeah,
some reason. I
yeah.
was
Well,
like,
and the Gaunt brothers, I think, ran a full schedule one year.
oh yeah, with Suarez.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, like, how are these guys making any money? I can't imagine that they are, right? So, yeah, it's certainly not sustainable. So,
Yeah.
yeah, but like I said, we could keep carrying on there, for however long we want to. You're not going to the Clash, are you?
Uh Not at the moment. I was debating on it, like just like like going as a fan, but more I'm looking at, it, I'm like, probably not.
All
Probably
right,
just stay
because I
home.
know I know Luis went last year. Did you
Hmm.
go last year? I think. Okay, that's right.
Yeah, I went like, just as a fan, just watching. It was honestly okay, it's gonna be just a little bit of spiel too. I know like the on TV product wasn't like the greatest or everything, but as someone who was there, that was like a great event. Like it honestly was. I definitely like that's why I'm debating on going back, even if money wise might not be the best thing, but I'm like, it was almost like, it's so unique and different. Like, I don't know. I really just enjoyed it. Like, not even like the concerts. Like, I'm not a big concert person. Like, what other place can you see, the best of the best just go like this quarter-mile track in the middle of Los Angeles? Like, no other series does that.
Yeah, I mean that's the one thing that I think NASCAR's done really well. Even with the events that haven't turned out so great. Like I would say, I'm not a fan of the first two Indianapolis road course races that we've seen, but I do at least appreciate that they are listening to the fans that have said, we want more road courses, we want more diversity in terms of the variety of the schedule, or the types of tracks that are on our schedules. We've even got a street circuit coming up this year, and then obviously what they've done in Los Angeles with the Clash. I think obviously it's indicative of the fact that it went well. The fact that they're coming back, in just a few weeks here, to do it for a second time. So we'll see how long this race is around.
Hmm.
The All Star race in North Wilkesboro. Really looking forward to that. So yeah, I think the schedule has certainly been a strength of at least the Cup Series for sure, over the last few years with what they've been trying to do, to add races in there. So I'm looking forward to the Clash again, and we'll see how it goes. I don't know if it's quite going to match the hype of the inaugural race last year, but I think it's a great event, and certainly great opportunity to tap into a market and a part of a country that, you know, NASCAR hasn't necessarily been the strongest in
Hmm.
throughout its history. So, you know, that can be a good thing as well, I think.
Yeah, and also we've talked about this, like everyone kind of knows, like, all right, they've done this. Where else can we take this?
Sure.
Yeah, it's like that opens up, a whole other can of worms, which, I'm not going to be on that for today, but it's like, I don't know, cool idea. And it worked out and it's still working out. So I'm like, all right, what can we do with this from here?
Well, Ethan, like I said, thank you so much for taking time out of your afternoon. I know you're it's not quite 3 o'clock for you over there, right? You're 3 hours behind
Yeah.
here, so
Hmm.
it's the evening for me at this point, I guess you could say. So I'm gonna go get dinner ready now. But thanks again for joining me, and hopefully, like I said, you know, hoping to make the trip back out again and do my own version of a double with Grid at Portland and then Brock and NASCAR at Sonoma. So hopefully, I'll see you again in about 4.5, 5 months from now.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm like, I know we like one thing we keep talking about back and forth that we are gonna do this, and we just never like really did it up until like right now. I know it's like happy. It's like a weird like just check mark off my list. I'm assuming
Uh,
same thing for you. But
yeah.
yeah.
Well, Will was always saying we got to hit the cycle for the group chat that we're in. But now
Hmm.
we've added Luis to it, so I guess I got to get Luis on here. Try to be a little bit more consistent in doing these, you know, at least once a month here,
Hmm.
grab a new year, because I always get motivated and we do a few of them, and then, you know, other things take over on my priority. But I really want to stay committed and keep doing this show on a little bit more consistent basis this year. So thanks again
Hmm.
for being my first guest of 23, and like I said, we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm setting the bar, and I don't know if I set the bar high or low. We'll find out.
Sounds
But
good, my
yeah,
man.
just
Take care.
you too.